Good morning, everybody. 8:36 a.m. It is February 20th. February 20th. Welcome to my channel. Now it's Friday. It's OPEX today, monthly expiration day. So sometimes you get morning volatility followed by pinning later in the day to large gamma levels. So this morning we had core PCE. Core PCE year over year, it went up 0.1. More than expected. I mean, it's not huge, but it did go up. Okay. I'm sorry. Hold on a second here. Real quickly, let's go over these readings. I just want to give you the correct information here. So I want to see core year over year. So core PC year over year went up to 3%. Was expected 2.9. And the PCE, not the core, went up 0.1 as well. Okay. Interesting. Not sure how much this is going to affect the market. GDP was expected to be 3, actual 1.4. That's the growth rate. This is the index. It was a consensus of 2.8, 3.7. So I'm not sure how much this is going to affect markets. I mean, core PCE is definitely not good going up. All right. So we have today. Then we also have Fed Bostic speaking at 9:45, PMI 9:45, and Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. with new home sales. Okay, but the Michigan consumer sentiment usually moves markets, so be wary of that. Okay. Yesterday we started off in a range-bound market. Remember, I was bias short pre-market. I ended up hitting that setup for a short. I had multiple shorts that literally gave me a lot of excursion, but came back and hit my break even. But then I finally got one, and of course, the one that I don't go to break even is the one that would hit my target. And I pulled my stop down because I was like, all right, if this stays in a range here, I'm not going to get another break even. And of course, that's the one that went to my target. Still made money, but it eventually worked its way self lower, but the internals weren't that weak, so it wasn't going to sell off. Now I'm still looking at these charts, seeing that we could possibly either stay in range or we could fall apart. Not sure how the market's going to turn out today. Okay, now with that being said, let's get into this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets, long cam exposure level, supply and demand, the most traded price of the year, the week, the month, and previous day. That is my edge. Also use market internals, anchor VWATs, expected move indicator. You can find on my Discord. ICT. That's how I come up with game plans. That is my edge. Okay, now hopefully you join me every morning. You subscribe, set an alert, give you the market story, the market news, technical analysis, and long and short trade scenarios in the Nasdaq and ES futures. Okay, now want more in-depth coverage? You're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay, like I said, I'm continually trying to raise the ante with my community. I've been live every day in my community with some members, so my posts have been light because I'm talking throughout the whole morning. So come join me, okay? Or let me know if you want some posts, but I've been really talking a lot, so hopefully you come join me. All right, let's look at futures watch list here. Now silver is up 3.67%. VIX is up to 20.85. We're going to have good, again, tempo, okay, at a 20, over a 20 VIX. Gold is up 1%. 30-year bonds are being bought. The dollar is flat. The Dow is down 0.22. Is it down? Yeah. 10-year yield is down 0.22. ES is down 0.29. Nasdaq is down 0.43. Crude is down now crude is down today a half percent. Russell's down 0.68. Bitcoin's down 0.87. Bitcoin's just chilling. It can't get out of its own way. Ethereum down 1.18%. Moving on to the Max 7 Plus here. Okay, we have GE up 1.14%. All right, GE is above its expected move, or it hit it yesterday. It's above its expected move of 333. It's up to right now. You can see about 338, and I have that in my. They have GE catch and follow through from the United Airlines engine deal. Okay, Google was up 1% as well earlier. It came down a little bit. Okay, now half percenters down. Apple down 0.54. Microsoft down 0.54. Tesla down 0.66. Broadcom down 0.76. Nvidia down 0.80. And AMD the laggard. AMD is the laggard. Okay, moving on to top sectors. All right, now we're just going to go over laggards because there's really nothing up. So Qualcomm down 0.57. Palantir down 1%. Oracle down 1.14. And the mining stocks, the miner down 3.31% today. Okay, going to sectors. Okay, we have utilities leading this morning. XLP is only up 0.03. So there's really not much in utilities, not going to move markets. So we have energy down 0.38, semis down 0.45, and technology down 0.65. Okay, to me this market looks like it wants lower, but we all know how the market is. It looks like that, and then it could rip back up. So nobody ever really knows. Okay, now we're going to move on to my market morning prep. So the market morning prep here. All right, so economic calendar. We already went over the PCE, and I already talked about the PMI. All right, we got geopolitical. Iran tensions. President Trump has issued a 10-day deadline for Iran to negotiate a nuclear deal, warning of bad things if no agreement is reached. Crude and metals, crude rallying on the Iran deadline. Well, obviously, crude isn't rallying now. And silver is surging. Okay, gold on safe haven flows. Yields at 4.09. Okay. We talked about Google was up 1%. GE is up over 1%. Nvidia's down, Apple's down. Google outperforming the big tech rotation. GE catching follow through from the United Airlines engine deal. Trump tracker today. We have today 8 a.m. He's working on breakfast with governors. 11 a.m. private meeting, Oval Office, closed press. 6 p.m. in town pool call time. Right now, I don't see something. All right. You can see the VIX is over 20. We're looking at bullish percent index readings. Okay. We have the bullish percent index of the S&P 500 is at a 62%. Still not very weak. All right. Of the New York Stock Exchange, 63.04%. Same thing. Nasdaq's at 47%. It's not the weakest thing. Also, either that was down to 27. The percentage of stocks over the 50-day moving average. All right. 64%. Again, not really showing us much there. And the technology bullish percent index at 47.83, which is not that weak. It's almost half. So this market is in a flux. It really doesn't know what it wants to do. Okay, it really doesn't know what it wants to do. So we're going to move on. Now, we already talked about Trump. We already talked about his headlines. Let's look at some other stock news. So just give me a sec while I pull that up. If there's not much to talk about, we can just go right on in here. All right. Let's look at this together. Nvidia stock drop 0.3 ahead of the chip makers' earnings next week, which are likely guide sentiment going forward. Alibaba ADRs fell 2.1. Dropbox fell to 5.2. Here's the Newmont. Stock fell 3.5. The world's biggest gold miner said it expects to produce less bullion this year. Interesting. Okay, that's there. Let's see if there's anything else here. This looks like Tesla unveils cheaper Cybertruck variant. Meta cut stock awards by 5% for most employees. Okay, I'm going to end it there. We pretty much went over everything that I wanted to from earlier. All right, now let's move on to our market internals. These were very key yesterday. Very key. Because why? Well, look, barely up, barely down, then had a little weakness, but never got that weak. Okay? I'll give you some perspective. If I zoom out, look at how not weak that was. See how strong the day was before? Right? See how weak this got? And see how strong this got? That is, look at this. This reading was like barely on the radar yesterday. That's why the stock. That's why it couldn't move much lower. Okay, that's why it couldn't move much lower. Okay, and look, these are all like benign readings. Okay, 1-to-1s. I specifically talked to one of my members in my community yesterday when the stock pulled back to here and did this sweep. I asked him, "Are you long?" He was, right? Because I was like, "This market's not that weak." Okay, so that's your market internals. They were pretty much benign from yesterday. All right, moving on to the um, daily charts here. Now, this is a mess. A little bit of a mess. Okay. Now you can see in SPY, the day before we hit the 20-day moving average and the year-to-date anchored VWAP. 50-day moving average, 90. Remember I told it was a spider web. So you swept that liquidity. And then yesterday I said I expected lower prices. We got that. And look what we did. We went right down to last week's close and bounced. Right to last week's close and bounced. But look, if you look at the bigger picture, swing high, swing high. Let's say in this daily picture, we're still kind of trending down. Okay? Now, 682.35 is where we're at. We are at yesterday's lows. And we're falling right now as I'm speaking. We're almost about to gap down. Okay? So, now, underneath here, you got the 100-day moving average. You have last week's lows. Like I said, I feel like this feels like the stock market wants to go lower. Now, if I give you futures daily, look at this right here. This is your ES. Okay? And look, lower high, drop. Then look, there's your resistance right at the 50-day. And then look, you have equal lows here. Right there. At least you're going to break that right now. Okay? And then you have this swing low you got to go for. Now look at the NASDAQ. 200-day moving average. We're testing it again. Tried to move up, failed. That's the swing low you got to look at. 24452. Well, see what I mean? We're trending lower. Who knows what's in the cards because this market is middling, but I just wanted to point that out to you guys. Okay? Now back to daily so I can look at the futures. Okay? So, look, went right here. That's the sweep I talked about, right? So these longs really are hanging on by a thread. This looks like it wants to take out these lows. Okay, do we go back to last month's lows? Last week's lows? I don't know. Okay. Now, Qs. The Qs, and I always say in my community, Look, we're at last week's close, so we did nothing this week. When you're hanging around last week's close for the week, we haven't done anything. Okay? We're not doing anything. All right? We're holding below last month's lows, right? But where are we now? 681. Down at the lows. We're down at the lows right now. Okay? Futures. Look, we can't get back into last month's range. Like I said, we're probably going to hit this 24704, like I said, and then try to tag this 24458. Last week's lows are right here still. Today, do we fall? No clue, right? Never know. You can always go by the probabilities. Yesterday, I said probability was we move lower, right? Well, we came up here and then we did move lower. Now it just looks like this is a next swing high and we're going to push down, right? But we all know that market, right? How it looks. So we're going to move on to the hourly charts now. All right, let's look at these together. Okay, so remember what I said. We were in a range. We tried to break out of that range. We failed, right? And I said yesterday, we have a little mini range. And I said that maybe we stay in that range today or yesterday. We did, right? We did. So either we in the ES finally break that swing low and move down, or we stay in this new range. Okay? Right off the bat, if we look at the daily, that is not the most bullish candle. Even the last 4 hours. Okay? But what are we tagging, right? Yesterday's lows, we're by there, right? We have the most traded price of the week, 68.60. Okay? How many times are we going to come down and test it? I don't know. I don't know. Okay? All depends how the market is. It all really depends. Okay? I don't have. Well, let's look at this again. I'm just trying to see. There is. Let's add a bearish FEG here. So let's add that. There's another one here. Right here. Okay? Came into it. Hit yesterday's most traded price and sold off. But like I said, really have to see what it does with yesterday's lows. This could have to get one more push up for you to try to short it. But we're in this little range now, so like I said, take it for what it's worth. We are very, very middling. Okay, we're very middling. So we have to see. Okay, moving on to the Nasdaq. So the Nasdaq, look, it's relatively weaker. This is yesterday's lows. We just broke it. We're at it now. We're in a demand zone that has not been able to be taken out yet. Okay? Has not been able to be taken out yet. Now, there is a bearish FEG here. Let's update that. Right there. Okay? That look came right in there. Whoop, sold. Now, We just swept yesterday's lows. What I could see, just like yesterday, look what happened yesterday. And I talked about this. We swept this little overnight low right there. Whoop. And then as soon as you did that, you got the premium to short because you went into supply, into a bearish for value gap, and then this took a while to work itself off. See, you even came back one more time and then finally dropped and then could not go lower because the market just wasn't that weak. Okay, so now these candles at about 4 hours of trading have been broken, right? So this is really a crucial spot for the markets. Okay, do we break it or do we come back up? Now, like I said, really, the ES is a little more prettier than the price action here. Okay, but what I would look for, I think the shorts have control right now. Okay, so either way, you can have a long. If we sweep and try to close up to here, I think you can get a quick move up into here. Okay, and if you struggle here, you can't take out that swing high, and you do that, this is where you tag the overnight lows and see if you can fall. Okay, so if you want to go with the flow, you're going to short. That's not taken away. You cannot. You could have a long off the open. Don't get me wrong. Now, of course, today there's a slew of data coming out, 9:45 and 10 a.m. That's like the worst. And what I know is going to happen with me in particular is that I'll have my trade setup come to me, and it will be 9:40 or 9:43, and I'll be like, great. I'm not going to trade in front of 9:45's news. And then what will happen is, oh, I still have it. Now it's 9:59, and I want to do something, but I can't. And that Michigan consumer sentiment usually moves markets, so I'm most likely got to wait till the dust settles after 10 a.m. I know what's going to happen. It's going to set up, right? All right, let's move on to the market profile, volume profile. We'll get into some scenarios here. All right, this is your market profile, volume profile. You can just see right here, this is 24 hours, but you can just see the amount of volume that's been trading in this area. Now remember, March traded price, the most traded price of the week's here. If this most traded price of the month up here, you don't see that, hold on. Up here, right? It's still 69.63. If this moves down and creates ultimate balance, man, we're coiling. Remember, like a spring, you coil, and then boom, big energy. The move's just gonna be bigger. The more you coil, the bigger the move. But no one knows when that's gonna happen. That's the timing. Nobody knows the timing. Okay? Nobody knows the timing. All right, so let's look at this just like we were earlier. Okay? All right? Bears really do have control. Right now, that was the move that failed, and that's pretty bearish. Okay? So let's look at scenarios today. And right now, I'm bias short again. So we're going to concentrate on that. Okay, remember, 2 bearish FEGs in a row here. Okay? So right now, I'm looking at the close, 68.78, lines up with the most traded price of yesterday. Okay, so any kind of like this, okay, this is what's been happening lately. Let's say we do this. We take out overnight lows and we take out yesterday's lows. And then all of a sudden you sweep it, close in here. Now you get your premium, right? Because you always want to sell something at a premium. If you're selling anything, a marketplace, selling your house, you want to sell your house at a premium, not at a discount, right? When you're a seller, you want to sell at premium. So this area becomes premium. You get a failure here, whoop, wick, lower high. Now there's your short. Targeting that low and seeing if we can free fall, because look at all of this support here. This market has not been able to break through this. If it does with some weakness, this is going to cause some major sell-off. Okay. Now don't get me wrong, you can go a little higher. Okay, and also sell off. This is my main area. I don't want to really take out that swing high. Okay. Now, of course, if we stay in balance, okay, because we're in this balance area. So let's say we do that. Let's say we do this, but then the market catches a bid a little bit, and you come up and you tag the overnight highs. Month-to-date anchor VWAPs here. So let's say you do this, and then let's say the market has a balanced profile. Boop, does this, lower high, then we stay in balance. You could probably go back to the other side of balance. All right, that all depends on market internals are. Now for the long side, first long off the open, I got to see this. Some kind of wiggle, boom, sweep, yesterday's lows, overnight lows, and then a recovery back into the range, lower high. This could really get some fuel to go right up to where? The premium that I wanted to sell. Yesterday's most traded price, 68.78, and also yesterday's close. Okay, that's a pretty nice target. Now, bearish for value gaps. They go both ways. They can be cause the imbalance where if they get resistant, it's very bearish. However, it's also poor structure. So in strength, it could really rip it, and maybe you go higher. Okay. Honestly, that's the only long trade I'm interested in for right now. Qs. Okay. Remember, Qs are in ultimate balance. Okay. Ultimate balance. Most traded price of the month. Right? Most traded price of the week. Right here. Price is right here. You can see the sheer weekly profile with the value area. Right? We're right here. And the monthly 24 hours right here. Monthly real time is here. Our regular trading hours, okay? We are in ultimate balance. The Nasdaq is queuing up for a large, very large move. Look at this support around the 247s. You have all of this. If anybody's long here, they have not really been hurt. Just like in the ES, but the Nasdaq's coiled up a little better for a big move. Okay. Let's open it up. Now, if you also want to go with a bearish engulfing, this overnight session has a bearish engulfing of yesterday's range. Okay. That overnight high is above the yesterday and the overnight low is below, and we're down. Okay. Now, this gets very similar to the ES, okay? Most times, the market does a little fake out. All right, so let's get into scenarios here. Now I'm realizing for myself early on, I'm not the most confident early on. I don't have a ton of setups early on because the market has super big volume and it's very erratic. You know, I really have to see something to get in. All right, I'm better off a little bit with the market showing its hand, giving me the story, Okay, playing with a liquidity level. It's just when I try it, it always seems like I'm like a little skittish. I'm not like focused like I am maybe like 15, 20 minutes in or plus, because now I see the story and there's the market is showing more of its hand. Okay, so if we're going to look at it, remember I'm biased short. I'm biased short. So look, we already took out the lows. Now look, we already took out the overnight lows. So a little sweep is already happening in your Nasdaq. Okay, so this could either one or two things. Okay, it can go sweep again. Then I think you probably get that little bounce into ultimate balance and try again to try to attack that swing high there. Right around yesterday's close, about 2855, 24855s. Okay. Now this is where you want to attack. Also up to the 249s. You got bearish fair value gaps here. Any kind of touch into the 249s with a rejection, okay, is your premium to sell. Target the overnight lows. Then remember, if you look to the left, there's all of this support. Break the 247s. This is taking a ride down, at least the last week's lows, 24578s, and maybe lower. Now remember, this is ultimate balance. So any move away from this area is going to be a big, big move. Okay? Big, big move. And of course, if we do this, go all the way up into here, break the overnight highs, and then get weakness again, and the market's not that strong, then we could also just sell to here and stay in balance. Okay, now longs. Same thing I'm going to look for here. Okay, we do a little dipsy do, go like this, sweep yesterday's lows, overnight lows, play with the end of this demand zone, and then rock it up higher low. That's your discount to buy into this mess where you should take profits here. That's going to be a hard road. Okay. Now, of course, you could break through here and see if you can go higher if the market rips up. No doubt. Honestly, not interested in any other long than that. Okay. So pay attention to that. That's it, folks. That's all I got for you. Okay. So that's my analysis. Please smash the like button if you enjoyed that analysis. That helped my channel out. Now, of course, please join me every morning, give you the market story, the market news, economic calendar, and the technical analysis. And I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay? If you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay? I will not steer you wrong. And I welcome anybody who's a quant, anybody who's a coder, anybody that interested in markets but you don't have a framework and you're a quant that you could like watch me and go, oh, I could make up some system based on how you see the markets, and let's work together. I welcome it. Okay, I welcome it because I have my own system, but it's not based on some bot, right? One day maybe I'll make something myself, but I look at a decent amount of things, so I'll have to see one day. But if anybody has that skill, welcome, welcome. All right. Now, everybody, this is OPEX. Typically, OPEX is early volatility followed by some pinning, sometimes on large gamma levels. Okay. So, now, everybody, have a great weekend. Please, no trade to trade. And of course, hope everybody has a green day. Even flat is a win. Okay. I'm really going to sit back, really assess today. I don't want to jump the gun on anything. I don't want to get overexcited, right? That always serves me the best when you just sit back. You sit back. But then, and I made this, it's not a revelation, but like for newer traders, right, who are not going to have this yet in their minds. But yesterday, I actually was trading my funded account for the first time because I'm working on getting more combines. And I was so confident in that short yesterday. I think I shorted 3 or 4 times in a row before, and each one was in profit. And the last one, I wound up pulling my stop down because I'm like, man, if this hits my break even again. So I was very confident, right? And each time I was like, it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. Like, I know. Like, yesterday was a balanced profile. Going into heavy supply and bearish for value gap, I was like, and the trend is lower. I was like, this is the short. I'm like, and I shorted it multiple times in a row. And I was just like, you know what happens here. So that's kind of like when you get confidence in what you've seen before, where I haven't been able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that in the past. Maybe I took it short. Maybe I might go in again, but I would be more scared of like losing in the past instead of thinking it's worth the risk. You've seen this before. If it's an outlier and hits your stop, then that's the outlier. But more times than not, we should fall. Right? So that's what happened yesterday. So, and my overall analysis was correct yesterday. I said we should go lower. We did. Right? But the market, when it opened, just wasn't that weak. So I was like, man, if we fall, it's going to be big, but it's not really in the internals. All right? So everybody, have a great weekend, and I hope that I see you in my Discord. If I don't, I'll see you Monday morning.